In this video, sister-in-law has no boundaries. That's my baby, not yours. Police officer attempted to intimidate my patient, loses fight to physics. And we're having a sixth kid we can't afford, so we expect you to give us your college fund. Sister-in-law has no boundaries. That's my baby, not yours. I, 33 female, have been married to my husband, 28 male, for over 5 years. Our little family includes my daughter, 8-year-old female, from a past relationship, and our son, 3-year-old male. My husband's immediate family can have moments of toxic behaviors of entitlement. I admit to my husband that his mother, older sister, and older brother can be quite draining to be around. He agrees with me. Now, I'm going to share a story with you lovely people about my sister-in-law crossing my boundaries that I placed and then plays the innocent victim when my husband and or I blow up at her for her insensitive behaviors. There are many of these stories. I'm just sharing the one that still bothers me. When my husband and I found out we were going to have a baby, this was a planned pregnancy, we shared with our daughter and she hugged my belly and smiled. We wanted to share our happy news with our families. My family was happy for us and congratulated us with hugs and back pats. When we shared our happy news with my husband's family, their reaction was different than expected. BIL nodded his head and acknowledged our news as positive information. BIL has Asperger's. MIL started asking us a bunch of different questions and saying she didn't know we were trying to get pregnant. SIL's fiance was happy for us. SIL pouted and huffed. When her upset reaction was acknowledged, she blew up at my husband and I for getting pregnant before her. She ranted about how dare we go out of our way to throw our pregnancy in her face when we knew her and her fiancé had been trying to get pregnant, then accused us of doing this on purpose to hurt her. My husband told SIL that us getting pregnant had nothing to do with her and I backed him up. SIL left MIL's place, accusing us for being heartless and insensitive to her feelings. She cried about how horrible we were for becoming pregnant to spite her on her Facebook and to toxic family members who ate it all up and called us the jerks for flaunting our pregnancy in her face because we should have known she was suffering from infertility troubles. SIL was just as bad as when we got married, but that's another story. We actually had no idea she was infertile, or how hard they were trying for a baby before marriage. We wanted to have a baby together, so we chose to have one. Not long after SIL dramatics on social media and through the toxic family tree, we received a call from MIL telling us to apologize to SIL. BIL stayed out of it. Smart guy. My husband and I refused. We were not going to apologize to SIL because we did nothing wrong. MIL just wanted peace between her kids because holidays were coming up in a couple of months. The holidays were mentally draining. SIL was still bitter and it showed with her body language. Side note, I have PTSD and other mental illnesses/disorders. When I'm triggered, it's very difficult for me to recall everything. I don't remember exactly what all happened. I do know SIL and my husband were in loud, verbally aggressive conversations. Again, SIL cried about how terrible we are to their toxic family members and on social media. We cut off contact multiple times from SIL during my pregnancy to try stay mentally and emotionally safe. My third trimester of pregnancy was difficult on my body, but my doctor told me I was fine to keep working. I could barely walk or move without being in agony. I needed assistance to walk to the bathroom. SIL seemed to have changed her tune and was saying how she was excited to become an auntie to our son. No idea why, how, who, what, or where this came from, but I was glad there would not be a fight at our baby shower. Not long after our baby shower, I went into labor. Son was 2 weeks earlier. Our son was born on Mother's Day. It was also our wedding anniversary. My parents and daughter were there for me during the labor. After birth, my husband's mom and brother walked in first, then his sister and her fiance. SIL was asking where the baby was and demanded to hold the baby first. My husband told her she had to wait because if anyone got to hold the baby first, it was him or me. I was so exhausted after labor. It was 12 hours long, but I noticed when SIL had her turn to hold our son, she took many different types of photos with her phone, then took many photos of her fiance and our baby. I thought nothing of this, too exhausted to care. Well, I found out SIL posted her picture she took that day of our baby on Facebook, but instead of saying it was her and her nephew, she wrote that it was her and her little man. I was furious. Her little man? I didn't see her pushing him out of her. This was messed up and very disrespectful. I optimistically checked the comments to see if maybe she called him her nephew. Nope, She was soaking up the congratulatory comments. I sent SIL a very angry message calling her out on her blatant disregard for my husband and my feelings, then demanding she take down the photos of my baby and correct her lies. He is not her baby. He's my baby. She acted like she did nothing wrong and I was overreacting over nothing. I told her to cut the crap and stop claiming my son as her own. I got a phone call from my husband asking what was going on because he was getting messages from his sister saying, "Call off your wife. She's attacking me." I explained to him how his sister is pretending to be mommy to our baby boy on Facebook. My husband took my side and told his sister, "You're on your own." SIL corrected her Facebook post, clarifying that the baby was her nephew and not her baby. She cried to their toxic family members who all agree with her and call me a bully. Needless to say, my SIL and I do not get along. We don't speak to each other unless we have to in person. I'm always polite to her until her entitlement shows its ugly head. I will not allow SIL near our son unless supervised by my husband or myself. I don't trust her. I feel like if she had the chance, she would take our son. Police officer attempted to intimidate my patient, loses fight to physics. I'm a paramedic. A few months ago, we're coming back from a routine patient transfer when at an intersection about 4 blocks from the base, I notice a woman sitting on the side of the road with her arms wrapped around herself and her head down. I nudge my partner who's driving and we flip on the lights and I see her head come up real fast and she looks terrified. I get out and she relaxes when she sees the ambulance. After I approach, I notice bruising on her wrists and other similar signs of domestic abuse. She seems hesitant to get up off the curb and into the ambulance, so I decided I would at least pull the cot out of the back and give her something a little more comfortable than concrete to sit on. Now, a few important details. All the cots in my service are striker-powered cots. You've almost certainly seen these before. They're bright yellow with black handles and side panels. These cots have a motor and battery built in to allow us to raise and lower the cot at the touch of a button, instead of busting our backs having to physically lift the cot after loading someone. They're usually paired with an automatic loading system built into the ambulance that lifts the cot up to the right height to be pushed inside and also secures the cot when loaded. There's a little red tab at the end of the track just inside the doors that you press down to free the cot and allow it to slide out. When you press this tab, it simply releases the cot and the loading carriage is connected to, and it's up to you to keep it under control until it reaches the unload position and locks into place again. This can be problematic because these cots weigh about 125 pounds, about 55 kg. As soon as I hit the release tab for the cot, I hear lights and sirens behind me. It's a city police car, which is weird because we had not yet requested police, and we were outside the city, in the sheriff's department jurisdiction. We merely informed dispatch that we were stopping to check on a woman at such and such intersection. The woman says something along the lines of, "Oh God, he's here," and moves faster than me seeing free food being distributed at base. She dashes past me and pretty much hurls herself into the ambulance sitting on the bench seat. The cop is approaching and he's pissed. I put 2 and 2 together and slam the ambulance doors shut. Let's call this police officer Steve, or POS for short. POS, is she in there? Me, who? POS, you know damn well who I'm talking about. Me, you mean my patient? I'm afraid I haven't gotten a name yet. POS, open those doors. I need to talk to her. Me, you're not using my rig as an interview room. You can talk to her at the hospital. We go back and forth like this for a few minutes. My partner at some point came back to see what the holdup was, but overheard my stonewalling and went back to the cab to call our chief. I continue my routine of deny and delay until a pair of deputies, likely specifically requested for this by the chief, arrive. Oh good, now I have witnesses. See, we had stopped on an upwards incline. I had hit the release tab on the cot and it wanted to slide back. I had to close the doors so swiftly, I didn't bother pushing the cot back against the stops and locking it in place. Emboldened by the presence of 2 deputies, he gets in my face. "Get out of my way or I'm gonna have to charge you with obstruction." Okay, I step out of his way, and he opens the double doors. Between the cot, the monitor, and the jump bag, I'd say there was probably close to 160 pounds contained by those doors, all of which comes barreling out and hits the POS square in the chest. He goes backwards and falls on his ass. One of the deputies laughs out loud. The other walks up and kneels down beside the guy. He says, "Your shift captain is gonna be here in 5. I wouldn't be here if I were you." POS gathers himself up and scowls at me, then stomps off. There's a limited amount that I can say about the aftermath as the trial is not settled yet. But we all know how well charges stick to cops. The woman is now living elsewhere. The cop is still a cop, and I've been getting pulled over at least twice a week ever since then. But the video footage of him getting body checked by that cop remains one of the best things I've ever seen. We're having a sixth kid we can't afford, so we expect you to give us your college fund. I, female, 19, am my parents' second child. I have three brothers, 21, 13, and 7, and a sister, 16. We grew up poor. Our parents were often dependent on financial help from relatives, friends, etc. for raising us. This is because even though my dad has a mediocre job and my mom doesn't work, they just kept on popping out one kid after another. My parents are very religious and believe that children are a gift from God. Personally, I think that's total BS. My parents' reproductive choices wouldn't bother me if it hadn't caused mine and my siblings' lives to turn to shit. While growing up, we never had new clothes or toys. We had to accept handouts from family members who were better off. We never went out or did anything fun. To top it off, we were all well aware that the rest of the family looked down on us for constantly asking for handouts. Now, my older brother and I have managed to get into good colleges and are looking forward to a future that would be better than our parents' lives. He and I were staying at our parents' place for a while due to the COVID-19 lockdown. One morning, my parents called all 5 of us into the living room. Mom said she had great news. The smile that was forming on my face died a quick death when she said, "We're pregnant." I lost my temper. I asked them how they could be so stupid and irresponsible. Do they not have enough financial troubles already that they have to bring in another mouth to feed? My older brother tried to calm me down, but I was livid. After a lifetime of scarcity, because of my parents' stupidity, they still hadn't learned their lesson. I asked them how they planned to provide for the kid. My dad told me I would have to give up the money our great uncle had left me. He had left all 5 of us some money which only we could access when we turned 18. I said, hell no. That money would help pay for my college expenses. He called me selfish for not being there for family. I told them if they couldn't provide for the kid, they should get an abortion. My mom started crying and called me a heartless monster. Dad told me he was disgusted with me. I told him there was no way I was going to pay for their stupidity, and the only thing I would be willing to pay for is a termination. What I was really worried about was my siblings' lives getting even worse. My older brother and I have escaped our parents' clutches, but the others, especially my younger sister, will be expected to help take care of this baby. No teenager deserves to have their adolescence ruined by diapers and a screaming baby. I know what it's like, as I had to go through that. It was expected of me to be an unpaid nanny to my younger brothers and sister. My older brother could go out with his friends and have fun, but I had to stay home and help give baths and feed the toddlers. I decided to get some family members involved so they could talk some sense into my parents. I called my mom's maternal cousin. She's one of my favorite people. When I told her that mom and dad were having another kid, she reacted with, "What? Again?" I told her everything and how they expected me to hand over my inheritance. She said she was going to speak to my parents and told me not to sign over anything. I promised her I wouldn't. Of course I won't. I also called 2 of my first cousins, one of whom is an accountant, so she could explain to my parents how much of a financial liability this baby is going to be and try to convince them to either abort or give it up for adoption. I moved out of my parents' home a few days ago. I was only going to stay there till the lockdown was relaxed, but I just can't bear to listen to my mom's nagging about how this baby is a blessing and that I want to kill it. I've moved into a friend's basement for a minimal rent. My mom's cousin paid them a visit about a week ago and tried to tell them they weren't doing this child any favors by bringing it into a life of poverty. My mom was very rude to my aunt and told her that a woman who chose to remain barren will never understand a mother's love. My aunt never wanted kids nor had any, one of the reasons she's my fave. My dad told her to get out. Aunt told me there was nothing she could do, but she did try. I didn't blame her. The cousin tried to explain the economic impact this kid would have, and my mom cried about how everyone was trying to take away her baby. What the fuck? The intervention didn't do shit, so now I've decided to cut contact with my parents. I just can't watch my family slide further and further into a hellhole. I'll be maintaining contact with my sister, 16, just to make sure my parents can't brainwash her. My older brother is going to stay in touch with all of them, which is a good thing as he can act as a link between me and the other siblings if my parents ever forbid them from talking to me. Otherwise, I'm done with these people.